Allison.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start, everybody. Well, hello and welcome to everyone. Welcome to the Gallery and Exhibit Roundtable discussion with three Missouri gallery experts. I'm Allison Bruenger, and helping us out today is Wanda Tyner and Kim Carr. A little housekeeping, as she stated. In our workshop today, we would like everyone to please stay muted. If you have questions or issues, please use the chat feature. You will find the chat button at the bottom of your taskbar on your screen. Near the end of the workshop, we will open up the floor to a little Q&A with our panel. We will have, as a link, a handout for this event on our Facebook page, and we'll also post it inside the chat area as well. And I know, Wanda, you're awesome explaining out the gallery view, so if you could kind of explain that part.
Okay. For most of you, it's a little difficult because everybody's device might work differently, but for most of you right now up in the top right, you will have something called either speaker view or gallery view. If you click on the gallery view, you're going to see everybody that your size of screen allows you to see in a set of boxes. If you click on speaker view, you have multiple options. So if you want to make big, if you want to make big just the person who's speaking, so I'm going to try to do this. If you can see, everybody see that?
Yep.
Up in right up, there's that gallery view. I'm now in speaker view, and in speaker view, you get these four little symbols. The one with the three lines gives you the most visual of people, but it's not the gallery view. The second one down gives you like 3 or 4 on the right hand side of your screen. The bigger fat single line is going to highlight the speaker, and the very skinny line on the left on your screen is going to be no speaker. You're not going to see any video of people. You're just going to hear people talking and see whatever else is on the screen. So you have control. And in addition, you can drag that little box that's showing the different views, because it might be in your way. You can drag it around on your screen. So hopefully you can control what view you want to see.
Okay, well, and thank you, Wanda, because I know that usually ends up helping everybody out in that area. I will let you know our panel for this online discussion will be Mary Martin, you should give a little wave, of Green Door Art Gallery, Wendy Harris of Artisans in the Loop, and Kelsey Hammond of the Columbia Art League. If you can, each of you, if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your gallery. Whoever would like to start.
I'll go ahead and start. I'm Mary Martin from Green Door Art Gallery in Webster Groves. And Green Door is a gallery that has 30 resident artists right now. And we also have a guest artist program where we do 5 additional artists every 2 months and have an exhibit based around their artwork, a themed exhibit. And that kind of ends up being like almost like an audition for a resident artist position once it becomes available. So a lot of people who have been guest artists at the gallery are now resident artists, including me. I was a resident artist, or a guest artist in 2016. Became a resident artist in 2017 and bought the gallery last year in July of 2019. So almost a year of ownership of the gallery. And in addition to the resident and guest artists, we also have a classroom where we teach all kinds of different art classes, from oils to pastels to acrylics, occasionally mosaic glasswork, just whatever the artists who are wanting to teach. So currently it's all resident artists who teach there, and I've started having guest artists as instructors as well during their stay as a guest artist. So that's the gallery, and I am a collage and mixed media artist, working with nature themes, and I also incorporate music in the background because I've been a church singer since I was like 17 years old. So 40 years now. So anyway, that's me.
And I guess I can go. I'm Wendy Harris and I own Artisans in the Loop. And we are located in the Delmar Loop right across from Blueberry Hill. I retired from my job at Missouri Baptist as a radiology supervisor in January of 2018. And it was a very short retirement because the opportunity came to open my own gallery. So I signed a lease in February of 2018 and we opened a couple months later. So we are starting our third year now. We have 80 plus resident artists in the gallery. We don't have classes. We had some plans for some small exhibits and events that are temporarily on hold, but hopefully we will get to bringing some of the artists in that can, we don't have a lot of space to do that. So we have to be careful with what we do down there. We're not allowed to use the street at all, the sidewalk. So it's limiting, but we thought we had some solutions for this year and we're still hopeful that we will be able to get some of those special programs in.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Hammond and I'm the new director at the Columbia Art League, which has been in Columbia for 62 years, I think. So I have not been there the whole time, as you can probably tell, but I have loved the Art League for a long time. And when the position came open, I jumped at the chance to work with tons of incredible artists. And, you know, we have kids classes and adult classes, and that's awesome. So I get to be a part of that. But then also we have 2 gallery spaces and we do group shows in one of those gallery spaces throughout the year. So we have about 6 to 8 shows per year. We have a solo gallery space that is smaller that we just started this last year or in 2020, which not a lot has happened in there so far, but we've had a couple shows in there. And we also have a nice middle space that's like our retail space for more functional objects, so pottery and jewelry and things, but also prints of paintings and that kind of thing. So we have a good space. We have a robust membership. And if you aren't a member of the Art League, I fully recommend that you become one. So members are able to show their work in that retail area space, and then also are able to participate in our member shows, which are 2 of those a year, and then also enter into all the other shows that we have, which are open to anybody. So even if you're not a member, so that's kind of what we do. And my background is that I have a master's. I have an undergrad in art history, my master's in photography, doing all darkroom chemistry and using a large format camera and historic processes and that kind of stuff. And then I ran an art studio at Mizzou for years. So I kind of have a lot of different, you know, like I can mix glazes and load kilns and that kind of thing. I'm really bad with fibers, so all of you could probably help me with that. And I have no painting skills at all, but I like painting a lot. So that's kind of who I am and why I'm doing what I do.
That sounds awesome. Thank you guys so much for getting that going. And so we have a poll coming up, so you guys please kind of hop in for that. So this at least gives us an idea of some of the different things that are going over, and that you all are all in different areas. So we're speaking U City, Webster, and then all the way towards Columbia. So at least getting a small slice of the different areas and how maybe some of those areas we can, you know, actually take our work and spread it to, rather than just in our small area. We could maybe go ahead and start approaching galleries in like a Cape Dorado or a Columbia or a Springfield. So that's always really exciting. So.
Allison, I'd go ahead and ask your first question to the panel, because Wanda can put the poll up whenever she's got a chance.
Awesome.
I closed it and I should be sharing the results right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we already have 47% in galleries, but 40% not, and then currently, but have been in the past at 20. So we do have a large amount of people who also really want to, you know, actually possibly learn more about getting into some. I have a couple of questions that did come up. We were kind of talking about. One was, when visiting a gallery that you like to see if it's a good fit. And this is something that I've noticed that people were kind of talking about. Is it appropriate for you to leave your contact info there, or do you ask to speak to that owner right there when you approach, you know, when you're right there at the gallery? So I'd just be curious. I will throw that out to all three of you guys. Like, how, when a person needs to approach a gallery, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I can speak to what we do. We do have people that come in and look around for a while, and then they'll come in. I don't mind if they come and ask at that moment, you know, how do I get my work into the gallery? What I don't like is somebody that comes in and then I don't care if they'll pull out their cell phone and start showing pictures of their work, and don't want to be rude, but our process is we give them a pamphlet or our business card, and what I like is for them to email me some pictures of their work. And the reason I like that is because they're going to probably, I think that most people will send what they feel is their best work. If they want to get into a gallery, they're going to show their best work. And then I also ask for a little bio, nothing fancy, but just so I know a little bit about their background. And I do let them know at the time that we have a waiting list, because we truly do, but things change. And, you know, if it's something that's not going to compete, we also tell them that if they're looking and if they have a type of work that is similar to somebody else's, it probably won't get into the gallery at that time, because I don't want my artists to compete with each other. They have enough of that outside of the gallery. I don't want to do that. So, and what I find is very few people will actually take the time to send me pictures and a bio. And that's how I know they're really not real interested. So it kind of weeds, because we get people coming in and out all the time and say, I'm an artist. And sometimes they walk in with their artwork, you know, in bags, and it's like, you know, we don't do it that way. And the other thing that I will do, but when the artist says, well, here, look at my Instagram or look at my website, it's like, I may do that on my own, but if they can't take the time to send me a couple of, you know, their better work that they think is better and a bio, then they're probably not going to get into the gallery. If they don't have the initiative right in the beginning, then it's not going to be what I want. It's going to be hard once they're in the gallery to get participation.
Yeah, and I would agree with that as well. And when artists come into the gallery looking to see how they get in, typically what I'll have people do is I'll hand them a form. I've got a guest artist application that they can fill out and return, or they can just go to the website and get the information. But it's a similar application process in that I want to see 3 to 5 images of their best work, hopefully seeing a very cohesive look to the work, where I can look at the work and know that, oh yeah, the same person made this, instead of having things that are, you know, kind of disparate and not looking like the same person made them. And the same thing, looking for a bio and an artist statement, if they've got a website, Facebook page, Instagram, all of that kind of stuff. Because if that's there, then we know, again, that the person is, you know, serious about pursuing their artwork, and it's not just a hobby thing or kind of wishful thinking that they get into the gallery.
Yeah, and I would just add that I would, if you haven't watched Project Runway, which of course is, you know, great, and also Make It Work with Tim Gunn, but anyway, is that thinking about some of those things that the judges say of like, is it cohesive? Does this group of materials work together? Is it telling a story? Does it read with what you intended? That kind of stuff I think is important, just to kind of ask yourself as you're approaching a gallery, you know, if you do have a bunch of your stuff in a bag, like Wendy was saying, and then you kind of pull it out, it kind of feels like I'm at a garage sale, you know, which is not your intention and is not how we want to think about it either, obviously. And we, you know, we will lovingly look at things, but it's also like, it's a little overwhelming when it's just kind of pulled out of the bag and we don't know exactly what we're about to see. So thinking about like, so Art in the Park is something that the Columbia Art League puts on. And so when we look at artists who have applied for Art in the Park, we want to see your best work, obviously, and we want to see that it relates to each other. So I think Mary has such a good point of really thinking about, again, not like I do a little bit of knitting and I also do a little bit of embroidery and and then I took this painting class and so I have a whole set of little paintings that I did. You are probably talented in all of those areas, but coming up with one particular thing that you think would be best in that gallery, having that conversation with the gallerist is really helpful. So just being open to the feedback, I think, is important to coming with that that approachability, you know, like have good images, send that email, just introduce yourself. That goes such a long way in building a relationship with someone, because we will work really hard to sell your work because we want to support you and also it helps us, right? So we want to make sure that that's a good relationship that we're starting to build. So if you're building a relationship with somebody, you're not going to come in and just be like, check out my stuff. That's like not a date I want to go on. You know, that's a different kind of thing. So just keeping that in mind, I think is good.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, the other thing is, once I've received a guest application, whether it's through email or somebody returning the form that they've filled out, if it's something that I like, then I'll invite them in to show me their work in person.
Yes.
Right.
And because most of the time it's not, you don't always know from seeing it in photo if it's really what you want. So then I'll have people come in and show it to me in person. That way you get a really good idea of the quality of it. And one of the things that I would say is looking at least from perspective of framing, for those of you who are 2D wall artists, we want to see things that are, you know, that the framing is good. It's not dinged up and dented. There's no paint missing or, you know, scratches, and that, you know, it's just quality framing. It doesn't have to be, you know, super high end or anything, but just that it looks consistent and it's not, you know, not looking junky.
Right.
If it's a handmade frame, you need to see that the corners are matched up and not, you know, no gaps in them, things like that. Just making sure that it looks good.
I'm glad you said that. We've had an issue. Actually, I had one artist that had to come. I had them come and take everything back out and have the screws that hold the wire, just have everything redone because it was not, it just wasn't, the frames weren't good frames. And I was afraid. We had one picture, I came in on a Sunday morning on the floor. The glass was everywhere. And the screw in the back had pulled out. So then we took everything down and we were looking at them and we called and she came and redid everything. But it's very important. We use, I think it's Stays, S-T-A-S. It's a picture hanging system. And so we don't have to put nails in the wall. And you have to measure how many pounds per square inch can hang. And it's, but if the wire on the back is not taut, then the pictures hang forward or they don't hang straight. So I got a lesson. I got an education in this early on. And so it's something I know to look for aside from the dings, because I found that a couple artists had pulled pieces from another gallery and brought them. And and when they do that and they transport them, they do get a little bit dinged up, and you just have to watch that.
We have a couple of questions. that I think we might want to bring into this particular conversation.
Yeah.
Marcy asked, you referred to the artists in your galleries as resident artists. What does that mean? Do you purchase their art, take it on a consignment, or do they pay to join?
I think
My
we're all a
gallery-
little different.
The way Green Door works is it's almost like a hybrid between a traditional gallery and a co-op, in that the people who I consider resident artists, they're there on a contract. It's, you know, they're in the gallery for as long as it's profitable for both of us. In our gallery, there's a small commission plus a monthly fee.
Okay, and our gallery is just strictly commission. The 80 plus artists are all on a contract. And again, if we need to part ways, or if they can always come and swap pieces out if something's not selling, we do let them do that. But when they sign the contract, they are locked into that contract for whatever term. Originally, I had a year, and that's kind of a long time. But my fear was that, and it's happened a couple of times, that artists are they sell not only in the gallery, but they'll sell online, and they've got somebody see something online and it's in the gallery and they want to come and pick it up, and it's like, no, you can't do that. So we've had a couple issues with that. But or I had somebody recently bring work and say, okay, so I'll be back in September because I've got a big show and I'll take everything. And I said, you just signed the contract. That's not what it says. You know, you can't. I said, just think about from our perspective, if everybody that does a show comes in to pick up their artwork to take to the show, what is that going to do to the gallery? You know, so we can't have that. So that's the reason for the contracts.
And Kelsey?
Yeah, ours is membership based. So if you are a member, I will work with you to see if your work is ready to go into our retail area, which a lot of it is. A lot of our members are able to show in that area. And then again, because you pay an entry fee to get into the shows for the 2D shows. I mean, well, also pottery is totally welcome and everything is welcome, but for those shows, it tends to be more painters. And then our members gallery, which is the gift gallery, it tends to be more functional objects. So in that way, we kind of, there's more hands-on like one-on-one together time when we're like talking about what would work in the space, who comes in and buys stuff from us, what the price range is going to be. There's more conversation there. For the gallery shows, it's more like people sometimes put astronomical prices on their work, which I think is hilarious because nobody in Columbia is going to be dropping like $12,000 for an artwork. It just is not going to happen. So yeah, so there's not as much one-on-one time there to kind of work with people. So
I did see one of the other questions.
We have another question. Oh,
go ahead, Kim.
okay. One of the other questions is from one of our members that lives out of state. And so they were wondering, do you accept artists, from out of Missouri, or do you have a certain area from which you pull your artists from?
Well, for the Columbia Art League, we like to say mid-Missouri, whatever that means. We do have artists who are in Kansas City and in St. Louis who show with us, but I kind of like to think about it as being super drivable. Like we're in the middle of the middle of the middle. So if it takes you longer than 4 hours to get here, probably it's not going to be a great option for you. So that's kind of where we are. We the only members we have who are out of state are people who are coming to Art in the Park, and that's more regional, maybe as far as Texas to Indiana is kind of our range of people. So for that alone.
And Green Door's pretty strictly local. I'd say like a 50-mile radius around St. Louis. So we reach over into the Metro East as well, but the vast majority of people are from the St. Louis side of things.
And our gallery is mostly, I say regional, but we do have out-of-town artists as far as Washington State. So it's not a requirement to live in town to be in the gallery.
There's another question from Candace. She's a fiber artist selling scarves and ponchos. And she wants to know if galleries expect that the artist would supply mannequins and the large displays for them. And same with jewelry. Do the artists provide the bust or whatever for the jewelry in the galleries?
I can speak for Artisans. I supply everything because I like a uniform look, and so I prefer to supply. I don't usually use what the artists have. They just bring it and I display it.
I think we don't have a uniform look. A lot of our stuff is sort of modular. We're sort of building it and tearing it down and moving it around quite a bit. We do ask that our artists provide a way to display something. We don't have a ton of different things. We have a lot of stuff that's been donated to us, so sometimes it's better when the artist provides something because it'll be a little bit nicer than what we have, honestly. So so we encourage that, but it's also, again, that conversation of well, our customers tend to look at stuff like this, so could you provide this? So we did have someone selling like shibori dyed tunics for a while, and we didn't have a mannequin, so she had one, so that one was displayed on there, and then we had a stack of that people could look at and kind of go through. And to be honest, it didn't sell very well in our space, so I don't know if that's just a functionality of how our space is laid out or whatever. So I think that's one of those things that we tend to have work in our gallery space for about 3 to 4 months and then ask people to come in and kind of refresh, because if it hasn't sold within that amount of time, it probably isn't going to sell. So let's switch it out and see if something else will work. So that's kind of how we take it.
Yeah, and in our gallery, the guest artists, I have a jewelry case for them, and they tend to bring in their own loss of words. They're showing the necklaces and the rings and everything. They bring their own in. The resident artists have a case and and a wall. Allison is one of my jewelry artists, and she does her own displays as well. So, and I don't tend to have a lot of fiber art. I do have one artist right now that shows scarves, and she brought her own display unit for that.
That one is good. I did see a really good question. Go ahead, Kim.
We've got someone's asked about like paintings. I'm assuming that everybody here you utilize your wall space. The 2D artists do not need to bring in any kind of a display for 2D art. Is that correct?
Correct for us.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
A question was asked is, do you set up the display or does the artist set up the display?
We at Artisans, we set up, we display it ourselves. The artists just come in and drop it off. And then we like to send them a picture of their wall or whatever space once it's set up.
And at Green Door, each artist has their own wall space, and for the most part, they set it up on their own within parameters from the gallery, so that it has a cohesive look. And then when the guest artists come in, some of them like to, they'll have their whole planogram as how they want it set up, and as long as that's within the guidelines of how we set up the rest of the walls, I'll let them set it up on their own. Other people have never done it or or would like additional help, and so I'll help them display it, but we kind of do it collaboratively.
And at the Art League, they drop off and then we set it out and display, and we try to keep the artists work together, but sometimes you'll have like a color story or a theme of some kind. Like we had some beautiful jewelry that were leaves, and then we had a bunch of pottery that had you know, leaves that had been pressed in, and then like I'm using the wrong terminology, but like a glaze rub was in there. So it was like really, anyway, all these things that really looked beautiful together. So we put all of that together so we could kind of create that story for fall. So we kind of think about that space as being, we don't always keep the artist's artwork together. Basically, we kind of try to make it so we can drift people around who come into the space to kind of find little pockets, sort of thinking about it more like what Wendy's saying is like a traditional kind of retail space.
And we do that as well for any days or special events. We'll have up at the front, I have frosted acrylic cubes. And so we'll put a couple of them together. And so I know for Valentine's Day, we go and pull something red or with hearts from all the different artists.
Yeah.
And so we do make areas like that. Right now we're working on Father's Day. And so we do pull different artists into one grouping.
At Green Door, we've got a big display window up front where I try to show at least one piece of everybody's work in there.
Yes.
As best as you can, and we try to rotate that through at least every other month when we're switching out the shows, but I'm going to try to do that a little bit more frequently coming up here.
There's another question. Do galleries traditionally ask artists to raise or lower prices reflecting their local market?
We could probably have an entire discussion about pricing.
Yeah, you are right. You are right.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I don't think that you can charge the same thing necessarily depending on your area. Like that. So in other words, St. Louis, people might be buying things at a certain price range, and in Columbia, maybe not as much. So it just kind of depends where you are. I think the most important thing as the person selling your work is to keep in mind that you need to get paid for what you do. It's really important. So don't think that if we say something to you like, well, that's probably not going to sell at that price. Just take that in and really sit with it and ask yourself, could I lower the price and it be okay? Or do I really need to sell it for this much? Like you have to kind of, my opinion is you kind of have to balance that for yourself. But do take the gallerist's advice on what you think will sell. I had a woman come in with a painting that was an acrylic painting. It was sort of okay. And she needed more time, let's just be honest. And so as an artist, and so she was charging like that $1,200 for it. And most of the paintings that we sell, like if you price your painting in our gallery at anywhere below $250, maybe $300, it will sell, because that's how much people here are willing to spend on a painting that they love. So for something that wasn't great, that had such a huge price tag on it, all people did was comment about how expensive that was and how ridiculous it was. And then her work became sort of a joke, which it shouldn't be, right? So like that was kind of the weird thing there, is that we had to really talk to her. I had to talk to her about how it was putting everybody in an awkward place because it became a little bit contentious, if that makes sense. So just thinking about, you deserve to get paid because your work is worth it. And you have to keep in mind where you're trying to sell that and what people can actually afford. So if you want to sell it, I always say just price it a little bit under and you'll sell it and replace it, and then you'll sell another one quickly. So that's kind of where I tend to advise people the most, is like, you want 20 for it, ask 18, you'll sell it, and then you can replace it and you'll make another 18, you know, that kind of thing, instead of just having one for 20 that you sell maybe. So
but along the same lines, if somebody is selling it for 20 in your gallery, she shouldn't be pricing it at 40 someplace else,
For sure.
because your pricing should be the same across the board for the same piece, regardless of where it is. So,
Yes.
I
because
agree.
I don't want to see that you're selling it at, a piece, an 8x10 at my gallery for $200, and you have it on your website for $100.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
you're
for
undercutting
sure.
your gallery, and
For
that
sure.
is a huge
Yeah.
no-no.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's-
And I think that goes into the beginning of your pricing structure, right? Is thinking about how much do you really need to make it worth the fact that you want to sell this piece? How much time did you put in? That kind of thing. Not keeping a timesheet where you clock in and clock out, mind you, of your time you spent on something, because that's not the best way, I don't think, to price your work. But to think about, I've made 6 of these paintings. It took me 6 hours because I really concentrated and I got them all done. They look like they're in good shape. I did this work. I think I could probably make $200 on each of these paintings. Then yeah, don't change that price range around. But if you're trying to sell something for $12,000, that is definitely not going to work. Just take the advice of your gallery people and maybe adjust that. And then yeah, adjust across the board as much as you can, but yeah, and also the stuff on your website should definitely be what you are selling for your gallery. So if your gallery is taking a certain percentage, build that into your own price for your own work on your website. You deserve it. Like if you sell it on your website, then you will get a little bit more for it, but it will show that you are being consistent, and that is good too. Also then consider what you're selling in different areas. So if you're selling in lots of different galleries, maybe you're selling stuff in St. Louis that's a little bit different than what you're selling in Columbia. Maybe you're selling platters that you are going to sell there, where you're selling mugs in our gallery, or thinking about it that way, so you can kind of spread your work around too, so people can see lots of different facets of what you're doing.
I was just curious about when you all were saying that. It also, I don't know how many of you guys are also doing art fairs and art shows, because I've seen it's not just across from one gallery to the other gallery. When people were pricing it at the art fair, and then someone comes from the art fair and they say, well, all right then, and then they come to a gallery and it's how much higher, then they say, well, I'll just go to the art fair. And then I've heard from many a gallery owner that ends up becoming a real issue as well, especially if we're doing local shows and we have local galleries. That's definitely something that consider. That is also another venue that we have to try to make sure it goes across the board. There was also a very interesting question from Linda, especially more for the 2D artists. Prints. Are prints accepted, or only original paintings at a lot of the galleries? How do you guys feel about that? Or giclées, are they mandatory? Are there limited editions required for your galleries, or for galleries in general?
Okay, well, at Artisans, we do have originals and we do have prints. And what I find interesting is, I watch when people come in and they'll look up at the wall and they'll head straight to the bin to see if there's a print of something that they like on the wall. So we do sell both in the gallery.
Yeah, and we do as well. So like what we ask for a resident artist is that at least 80% of what is on their wall, just framed and displayed, is original work. It's okay to have a framed giclée on the wall, but we also have a print bin where they can put their giclées there as well. And they do not have to be limited edition, at least for us.
When I wasn't clear, our wall is our originals. We're switching out to originals instead of the framed prints, except for one artist. But anyway, there's always an exception.
We do have a print bin. It is not heavily shopped, and I want to still have it because I want to encourage artists who do 2D work to still have prints available, because I want to, because I make 2D work as well. but it is not as shopped as our walls, and it's kind of it ends up being more of a sad place than anything else. So I think that's a functionality of maybe we're just not doing it right. I've definitely been looking at it, trying to figure out how we can do it better. Also, the prints that we've had in there have been there for a couple of years, and people have not come to pick up their work. So
Time to change them out.
a reckoning is coming. Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely like anyway, I've taken over from a couple years where the Art League's not had like a consistent leadership. So there's some stuff that I'm cleaning out. So I don't know exactly my answer to that yet, but I do like an art bin myself personally as a shopper. So I like to be able to look through and find stuff that feels like I can frame it how I want to, which I think a lot of customers like, because sometimes a lot of what I hear from customers about our 2D work on the walls in our gallery is, ooh, could they change out the frame for me? And I know that a lot of our artists are picking frames that they found like at Goodwill that are in pretty good shape, but maybe are like, little 80s, like a little gold, or maybe like the, you all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Really great frames that we liked a long time ago. So they're sort of put off by the frame, and it's kind of like when people are buying a house and they go and they're like, oh, this room is red, I don't want this house. It's like, well, you can paint it, like you can always reframe it, but it does stop people because it's not easy to then just take it home and hang it on the wall. So the frame, as neutral as it can be, and it really does make a difference when people buy something. So so I hope that our print bin will reflect that it will be something that people can just pop into a frame that they like, that they can then imagine where it will go on their wall. So
I am curious about something else that for all artists when you're actually setting everybody up and is it important for your artists, your resident artists, guest artists, or artists trying to apply to have a website or some sort of social media online presence? Does that, when you're accepting someone?
For me, I want them to have at least social media at the very least, preferably a website, because that tells me that they are serious about this. And, because if it's somebody who's kind of hobbyist, that's not what I'm looking for, because we want somebody who is actively working to sell their work, not only through the gallery, but on their own as well. And having those things reflects that they are serious about it.
I agree with that. At least social media presence to help promote their work and promote the gallery, because we do that as well. When something new comes in or we get a new artist, we always put it out on Facebook and Instagram. And we would like, some of the artists are really great at that, saying, oh, I'm dropping this off at Artisans in the Loop today, or whatever. So it works both ways. It's an advantage for both of us to do that.
We don't require it. We have a fabulous membership of, how do I say it? Well, they're older folks. They're great, and I love them. And a lot of people do not have any social media aside from their own personal Facebook page to catch up with people. And Instagram is not where a lot of our members are. Some members are understanding that that's another place to go. So we're working with people. I mean, I think a lot of what we're doing is, again, that relationship building and helping artists get better at being artists and how to transition them from the hobbyist to more of a professional artist. But we don't require it. We have on our website a place where artists can have their own sort of online presence. So they can, one of the membership levels is that you get to have this space. So that's always on our website. So if somebody does want to promote themselves, or if they want to send somebody to look at more of their art, they can utilize our space to do that. I would love to transition every single person to having their own website that they know how to manage and work, because I think that that's really beneficial to them. So they're just not there yet, which is fine.
Didn't know if Kim, if you would like to possibly have fun and open it up to everybody. Kim?
Kim is muted. There we go.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask? Go ahead and raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can just ask away.
Because I did see some in the
I know
chat.
that Kimberly, yeah, I know Kimberly just asked, do you require for the artist to work or volunteer in your gallery space? And I know that's different for every gallery, but maybe each of you ladies could answer that question.
Well, at Artisans, they are not required to work there. I do have 2 artists that do work there, but they are paid to work there. The only time I may ask someone to volunteer, or I would like, is when we do have an event that as many artists show up and support the event as possible, but they are not required to work in the gallery.
And at Green Door, they are not required to work either, but they get a reduction in their monthly fee if they do work a day a month. The guest artists are not required to work in any way, unless they want to do a workshop. And then when we do events like receptions, we ask that as many as the artists as possible show up for those, not only to promote their work, but just to help out with, whatever needs to go on in the gallery in the evening, and then, any other special events that are going on in the community as well, where people might end up in the gallery just because there's stuff going on out on the street.
We don't require our members to volunteer. Many of our volunteers are members, and I think that they have found that when they're in the gallery and people come in, not that they're just selling their own work, but they can talk to people about what it's like to be an artist, and so they can kind of educate people who are there, or if someone has a question about jewelry and the person who's volunteering as a jeweler can explain how a piece is made and that kind of thing. So it's super valuable, I think, to have them there, but also our staff, we have a very robust, our gallery is a nonprofit, so we're also doing a lot of community work, and again, we have a lot of classes that we do and all the things. So our staff is small, and it helps to have the volunteers be the consistent person in the gallery who can answer questions and that sort of thing. So yeah, not required, but we love having them. So
We have another question from Teresa. Could you speak to what you expect to see personally in an artist as in presentation of themselves?
Are you talking about how you're dressed, or what?
Teresa, I'm going to unmute you so you can clarify.
Yeah.
Teresa, can you clarify?
You're on mute.
See, I'm on speaker.
Yes.
There you go. We can hear you.
Okay. Right. Probably how they present themselves with their work. I think there's a certain amount of personal commitment to themselves and their work. And I think a first impression is a big deal. And I wonder how you all feel about that first impression.
Well, I think first impression is important, but that's kind of an interesting question, and I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. I don't know that would rule somebody out for me, though. I mean, the artwork is the artwork. Yeah. And so that's really what we're focusing on there, because I'll tell you, going, visiting some of the art shows, Clayton is an example. I mean, when you look at some of the artists, and I'm not naming it, I don't know, I'm just saying, just in general, you'll go and you'll see somebody that looked like they just rolled out of bed. And it's true, you all know that, you've all been to shows. And then, no, I wasn't talking about you, Kim, I saw you raise your hand. No, what I'm saying is that is not always, to me, representative of what their artwork is. So
exactly.
I don't that doesn't really make a difference to me. It's all about the work.
Yeah, and when they present work that is quality and you want to represent it, it makes it much easier on the gallerist and it's good for the relationship if, you know, when a set of instructions is given to you, that they're followed, like, you know, like when for the guest artist to apply, you know, and when you ask for certain things and they don't give them to you, or you ask for them by a certain date and they're late, or you know, just things like that. It's just, you know, show up when you're asked to show up, give the information that you're asked to give, and just present yourself professionally.
Right.
You know, and because those things go a long way, and just being nice that helps too. I mean, it's easier to work with an artist who is, you know, friendly and accessible.
Right.
Again, it wouldn't necessarily preclude somebody from working with somebody, but it sure makes it much easier when, you know,
It does.
when you can be personable.
Teresa, I'm just gonna tease you a little bit because I can tell you're a potter. You're a ceramicist.
Let me raise this up.
Yeah. And I love my ceramicist so much, and I, you know, loaded kilns and worked in a pottery studio for so long, and I cannot tell you how many. Now, this is strictly for the men that I worked with, but they always, you know, just looked like, that they had just rolled out of bed and were covered in clay head to toe, and their Crocs were just full of slip and all sorts of disgusting things.
Exactly.
And I love every single one of them, and because they made great work, and they were always there to help unload clay when it was delivered. And, you know, like, I think that I think artists, what's so great about the art community is that you pull together, you know, like I very much feel, not just because I'm an artist as well, but I just feel like it's a very collaborative community, and it absolutely has nothing to do with how someone's dressed. It's much more, about what their work looks like, and that effort and that relationship. So, so I love that you asked that question.
Kelsey, I'll remember that if I come to Columbia.
Yeah, and if you have a little bit of clay on your face, I'll just know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a plus.
That's a good one. And does anybody else have any questions? Because we can't open up the floor and go ahead and take you off of mute, so then you guys can also ask questions as well.
There are no questions. Should we have each of the panelists give any final closing remarks that they want to share with the artist?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there's one thing that I have noticed. Just make sure you use your resources well. And just an example of this is I'm currently looking for 2 jewelers to finish out my last 2 shows of the year. And I thought, what better place to go look for jewelers than Best of Missouri Hands? I figure I've got this website that I can go to and find information. And so I would go on the website and start looking, and I would find some jewelry that was interesting to me. And then I would click on their page, and all it would be their name. There wouldn't be any information about them, or how to contact them, or what their website was, or if there's any social media or anything. And then it's like, oh, so disappointing, because I really was interested in this piece of work and to help them out, and now I have no way to contact them. And then other people fully utilize it. Every bit on there, beautiful pictures, their contact information, their bio, a little bit about how they have created the work, and that just goes a long way to helping you get represented.
Well, I'd like to add, you know, if you're a new emerging artist right now, don't be afraid to take a chance. The worst, you can send an email to inquire. The worst that can happen is somebody will say no or not at this time. But you know what? You may get several no's, and then you'll get a yes. And I know I always like to try to find somebody that's new. I really like finding somebody that's just starting and working with them and giving them a chance. And it's exciting for both of us. So I think just, what's the worst that can happen? So they'll say no. So somebody else, you'll get in somewhere else. But it just helps build confidence. Once you get your foot in the door in one place, you'll see that it's really easy to just, you know, then you go on to the next. And so just don't be afraid, reach out.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. I wish that that was I wish that what I'm going to say is not as good as that, Wendy.
I'm sorry.
All right. It was so nicely said. I just really would love to impress upon people that thinking about who your customer is, like who's buying your work, if you have just an inkling of an idea of who that person is, who's going to come in and spend money on your artwork, that's going to help you think about how you present your work. So like I said about the framing thing, once I told the artist, this particular artist, that she kept using all these frames that I could tell were junky frames, when I kept saying like, the people who want to buy your work don't want your frames, she started changing it and people started buying her work more because she listened, you know, she took that information in. So kind of thinking about who's going to buy your work. If you have earrings, have you thought about what kind of card you could put your earrings on? Or have you thought about what a logo might look like? Or, I mean, some of these things are kind of like bigger things, but what does your packaging look like if you have a, you know, if you have a mug and the gallery you're working with doesn't have a particular tag that they usually use and they want you to provide something, think about what your tag can look like. You know, it doesn't have to be super fancy, but it should kind of relate to what you're doing and who you think is going to be interested in buying that. Because so many people buy stuff from us to give as gifts that if they can just take that artwork off of the table and come up to us and we can put it in the package and they can walk out the door and it's ready to go, that's great. They don't want to fiddle with stuff. They don't want to have to try to figure anything else out. I mean, we live in a society where people are moving, maybe not so much anymore, but we're moving really fast for a long time. So, so if anything, maybe the slowdown is taught people to really appreciate things and to hold things in their hands and to appreciate the people who make things with their hands, because that is so, so important. But yeah, so I would just think about that too. Think about all of the artwork you're making as being a gift for somebody else, and how will that person take it and give it to somebody else, because you're actually a part of that process. So that might help kind of in how you're thinking of presenting it to a gallery and then who's going to then take it from there. So.
I've gotten a lot. Hopefully everybody has gotten a lot out of everything. Is there any other questions or anything that we can, or that while we have them here, that they can definitely answer? We've also inside our handout have the contact information for everybody. If there is anything else, please contact any of us and we'll shoot it to them, or you guys can work together right along with them. So I'm just excited that we are finding yet another area that we can, you know, put our things out there and get our things there. I did see that Candace had one other one. She says, what type of gallery is better? Now this one, I love this one.
That's interesting.
Co-op, commission, question mark? Anybody has some feelings on that one? That's a really good one, Candace.
Well, I can tell you, we are strictly commission. And the reason for that, and this is my opinion, I don't, so please don't take offense. It's just the way we do it differently. I think of it this way: if you're in a co-op, or if you're paying for space and nothing's selling, you owe money. I assume that's how that works. In the gallery, in my gallery, if you don't sell anything, you don't owe any money. You don't make anything, but you don't have to pay anything. So while the commission's higher, probably, I would assume our commission is higher, but you're not out anything if it's a slow time, as it is right now. So
and
that's how we
from
work.
And from our perspective, with having a monthly fee, almost look at it, especially for someone coming in as a guest artist, you almost look at it as if I was going to apply to be in an art fair, I'd have a fee to enter. And so that's kind of how it is. It's a similar thing. So it's a reasonable monthly fee and a much smaller commission than 50%, especially for those who work.
And we're weird because we're membership and there's a commission. So our commission is 35%, which is lower than some galleries that take a commission, but we try to keep all of our initial membership fees or entry fees for things to be lower. I think this is actually probably a better question for the artists who are here to say, what is your experience? Do you think that having a commission gallery is better? Or, you know, what have you had your experience with? Because we can tell you all day long why we think what we do is best, but that's probably a question you guys want to have with each other at some point to find out what has worked best for you in selling your work. So
I would say for me, I have been in both, and they both have their perks, and they both have, you know, their downside and stuff. But I'm just tickled to be in a gallery and have my work represented, because, you know, that gallery is open 5 or 6 or 7 days a week, and my work is being exposed to people that it's not going to be exposed to out here in the country in the middle of nowhere. But one thing that I kind of like about on the commission basis is I was in a gallery that it was volunteer run, and there would be all kinds of artists in there all the time working, and normally during the downtime and that they would be painting or working on a project and stuff. And I went in one day to refresh my wall and just take inventory and stuff, and they didn't know who I was, but I had a wall up of art and stuff, and nobody got up to help me. Nobody asked to help until I got near their work. Then they would jump up and, oh, can I help you? Mm-hmm. Where in galleries that I find that are on commission, that gallery owner wants you to sell, because like Wendy said, they're not making money unless you're making money. Yeah. And I know Mary, she has volunteers and stuff like that, but I also know Mary's there almost every single day. And so if a customer needs help, they are motivated to sell your work. Where perhaps at a co-op, unless you've got someone who's truly dedicated, like I used to volunteer at a gallery up in Boonville once a month. First thing I did when I got in there before I unlocked the doors is I walked around in the entire gallery. I looked to see new work and if there was a new artist or anything. So when someone came in those doors and they said, do you have anything with purple butterflies? I could say, yes, we do. Here's this painter over here. Here's this jewelry artist. So for me, the commission galleries have been a better experience, but that's not to say that there's nothing wrong with the other way, because they can work too, but you really need to have people that are dedicated to see that artist sell, whether it's their work or not. So
that might be, and Kim, I kind of piggyback off of what you just said there, is the fact that when we're doing our research about what gallery we want to be in, maybe it is the good thing when you do start asking your fellow artists, well, what place are you in? Well, how do you feel about how they are? Because I'm thinking, as you know, I'm in both, you know, the commissioned and in the type of gallery where people are working and paying as well. I noticed that with the galleries, one of the galleries that I'm a part of, all the artists are so vested in each other that we don't really run into that as much as just everybody sitting there. And when, you know, when they're looking at somebody's painting, they're like, oh, well, yeah. But then when you come up, oh, well, let me show you, this is my work and it's my things. Where I'm at, there's like 3 or 4 different jewelry artists, and I know the jewelry artists. I talk about their work. I know how they do it. Half of them are my friends. We're vested. And that's also not just the gallery, but the artist that you're showing with. It begins to become, you know, it's something that you need to really look into too, because those people are more vested. So even with a commissioned place, that's definitely, like you're saying, Kim, that person, that's their bread and butter. They sell your work. That's how they make their rent too. So there's a different investment. But then when you're in those other galleries, if there's a group, when you start meeting those other artists, especially at the openings, and you see how vibrant they are about it, and then you might go to another opening and everybody's like, ah, blah, 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 blah. You begin to, and then and like you said, come in and no one knows you. That's when you find out, oh, well, your stuff been sitting there for a couple of months. Why? Because no one's like they're not trying. So yeah, it does become that's back to that where everybody's saying research where you want to go. Do you fit? Does your work fit there? But do you want your work even there? So that was just my 3 cents, 8 cents. But awesome question, Candace. That might be a whole other workshop all on its own. That and pricey, mercy. But if anybody else has anything else, I would just really thank everybody for coming out. You guys, oh my gosh, thank you, panel. Thank you. It gives a lot of food for thought, completely, a lot to think about. I hope that this has helped a lot of people, so they can go ahead, as I said, to start up what they really need to do. But if anybody has anything else, just let us know. But Kim or Wanda, anything?
Well, thank you for asking. This has been
Yes.
informative for me as well.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Be
you.
safe,
Appreciate
everybody.
you ladies very much.
Well, guys, have
Thank you.
the rest of the day and start researching where you want to be.
Bye.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
one.
Thank you. Ladies, I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you very much.
Woohoo, thank you, guys.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
thank you,
asking.
Mary. We
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get
All
some
right.
more information out to the members and stuff. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe our members will get those juried pages updated.
Uh-huh.
I think
I
that
hope
was
so.
good. I
That was a
appreciate
nice
you
plug.
saying that.
I was much nicer about it today than it was last night. Oh, all
But
right.
it's true.
Mhm.
So
Yep. Use your
well,
resources.
have a wonderful day.
All right. You do the same. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I think that went well.
Whew. I was trying to hit
What do
stop
you guys
recording.
think?
Do you hit stop recording?
Oh,